whatever that is, whatever that is.
Whatever That Is the title of Sean Cunningham's debut solo album. Music fans in New Zealand will remember Sean as the lead singer of hit-making band Atlas back about 15 years ago. Fast forward to today and we find Sean back in his native U.S., living in Nashville, but he still has fond memories of his time in New Zealand.
I was in New Zealand for just over 6 years with Atlas,
Yep.
And we had the most amazing experience there. I mean, straight from the beginning, we got signed to Warner, and then just kind of skyrocketed from there, and had the Song of the Year, and we're doing the MTV Australian Music Video Awards, and it was all the rock star dreams kind of came true overnight, and it was an incredible experience.
And yeah.
And then after about 5 or 6 years of doing Atlas, we decided to disband, mainly because I was losing my voice at the time.
Okay.
And I had to come back to the States to seek medical help, and spent about a year and a half going back and forth between New Zealand and the States. And at that point, the band had kind of just dissolved, and so I decided to come back to Nashville, where I'd been going to the Vanderbilt Voice Clinic.
Oh, right.
And had friends here, and saw a new path. So came here and started another rock band for a while.
There you go. Sounds like you got your voice back anyway. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So did you come to New Zealand simply because you joined this band, or how did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. We met when we met in 2005 in Los Angeles.
Right.
And I was working with a producer named Hank Linderman at the time, who had worked with the Eagles, Chicago, the band America, like a lot of great classic bands. And one of the singers from the band Chicago, Robert Lamb,
Sure.
was doing a solo show in LA and releasing a new album. And he had some ties with a New Zealand label called Elements, and they were helping put out the record. And two of the people they brought over with them, one of them was a partner in the label, was Ben Campbell from Zed, and his sister Beth, who was singing background vocals on that show.
Right.
And we were introduced at the Knitting Factory in LA, and we hit it off, and they were in town for a few weeks. So we hung out every day, and we started writing songs, and the producer, Hank, kind of played puppeteer with us,
right,
kind of trying to get us together. And once he did, we were off and running. We already had probably 5 songs recorded there in that 2 weeks. And they asked me if I wanted to move back to New Zealand with them.
So as you can probably tell, I have an American accent. I moved here from upstate New York in '94. So
yeah.
So it's probably old news for you, and you probably talked about it a billion times. But I'm really curious as to what your impression was of New Zealand when you moved there.
Oh, I fell in love.
Right.
I fell in love immediately. I'm still in love. I miss it all the time. Trying to get back there.
Okay.
And my first place I arrived was in Christchurch, and I've always been someone who just thrives on travel and thrives on seeing new places and having new experiences, and that was certainly no different for me. It was an amazing experience at the time, and I felt right at home.
Right. All righty. So now you moved back to the States. You were in this band called the Cunningham. You moved to Nashville, and now you're doing the solo thing. So it seems like quite a trip and quite a long period in between.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know how in depth you want to get, but what was going on there with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first came back, I actually still didn't have much of a voice for probably a year.
Right.
And it came down to, it turns like they finally, after about 8 months in, were like, "Hey, did we give you an allergy test?"
Oh.
And I was like, "No." And they're like, "That should have been the first thing we did."
Oh, geez.
And so they gave me an allergy test, and I'm allergic to everything in the air.
Oh, nice. Well, that's no problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. So So that was a huge contributing factor. And I also used to smoke cigarettes back at the time, and I had to quit that.
Yep.
And so lifestyle and allergies. My dog's certainly performing back here.
That's all right. Let him go.
Yeah, so it was a combination of those. But then once I got on a good allergy regimen, my voice slowly started coming back.
Yeah.
And in about 2013, I started the band The Cunningham,
Right.
which was mostly a kind of 70s inspired throwback, like Led Zeppelin style rock band.
Right.
And we played all over this country and rocked out for several years. And until I finally kind of just got a little tired of doing the band politics,
Gotcha.
you know, that I've been a part of for, at that point, 12 years, you know, and not 12 years with the kind of, but, you know, being in, and actually even more than that, just going on from bands in high school, then coming to New Zealand with Atlas, and then the Cunning. I just finally got to a place where I felt like it was time to just do my own thing. Plus, I had a huge catalog of songs that I was sitting on, of solo material, things that wouldn't have worked with the band or with any other projects I was working on.
All righty. So that kind of makes me wonder what your music is. This song, whatever that is, more representative of who you are? I got to guess that it is than what you were doing with the Cunning or even or Atlas.
Absolutely. And I think too, I mean, you know, our styles evolved over time. You know, I mean, what I was doing with Atlas back in the day was very much me, and a reflection of my style of writing combined with Ben and Beth and their style of writing.
Right.
But it was very reflective of my influences and the styles that I was into, and as was the Cunning when I started that. But this new stuff is probably the most down-to-earth, heartfelt music that I've ever written. And it's certainly reflective of where I've been in my life the past few years. I lost my father a few years ago, and that played a big role in this. And that song in particular was written about 6 months before he passed, and having a conversation with him just about how strange life is, you know, getting older at each age. And he had just said to me, you know, I'm 72 years old and I feel the same way. I still feel like the 20-year-old behind these eyes.
Right.
You know, it's just things hurt a lot more now.
Man. Yeah.
I need more ibuprofen.
Yeah, I know how he felt.
Yeah.
And you put out an EP or a single or something about 4 years ago. So this has been a bit of gestation from that to here.
It has, and it was actually a huge departure from what I was doing with the Cunning, and really from what I'm doing now. It was more a challenge to myself at the time. Like right as I had left the band, I thought, in all honesty, I was kind of burnt out with all of the kind of music I had been making, and all of even the bands that I listened to for years. I was a bit jaded with my experience here in Nashville and my experience with the Cunning, that I just didn't feel like listening to any of that at the time.
Right.
And so I really kind of delved into different interests of mine, mostly slightly electronic stuff like Radiohead and Tom York's solo career, and a lot of like Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins, and a lot of that kind of very pop influence, but electronic based kind of music and sounds. And I kind of just wanted to do it as a project or a challenge to myself to see if I could write, record, perform, and produce an entire EP all myself, because I had never done that before.
Gotcha.
And so that's what I did.
Yeah, and you did. So this one here, the record, the album, is kind of all self-recorded, self-financed, recorded in your home, the whole bit, which is very different than what you were doing when you were with Warner Brothers.
Oh, absolutely. Much smaller budget.
Yeah, I can imagine. But so, what are the pluses and minuses when you're readjusting like that and resetting up?
Well, I think the pluses of being able to do it yourself and to be able to kind of produce everything yourself, to record at home, do all of that, is you really get more time to spend on things, to kind of experiment with the songs and let them evolve and kind of see where they go. Sometimes as you start writing and recording a song, you might be at the same time playing that out live at shows.
Yep.
And 6 months down the road, the song is kind of different from where it started. So it's a cool opportunity if you're recording and producing everything yourself at home to be able to go back and add new things to it in that regard. At the same on the same token, it's amazing to have a huge budget to be able to go in to a really nice studio and knock out a record in a week or two. Whereas this record took me the better part of a year and a half, 2 years to complete all of the recording, the mixing, the mastering, everything.
Right.
But there's pluses to both ways.
Yep. Well, I see behind you there's a poster of Abbey Road and the Beatles, and talking to you, it reminds me of Paul McCartney's first solo album, which he ended up doing the same thing. Him and Linda were in a little cottage, and they just made it all in the house. And this is in 1970 when nobody had done that before. So,
absolutely, I love that record. The Beatles are my biggest influence always.
Very good.
Always.
And you have a tune called Honeybee, which when I'm listening to it, I can hear the percussion. It almost sounds just like I'm hearing you slapping your knee.
That's exactly.
Is that what it is? All right.
Exactly what it was. I literally put a mic on my knee and went.
Picks me up, takes me out, smokes my cigarettes. She drinks my tab and she takes me home. Lives that summer dress. Could she be my honey, be my honeybee?
The inspiration for that actually came from Paul McCartney from the song "I Will" off the White Album.
I know. I love that song.
I loved how he did the bass part with his mouth.
Right.
He just sings it, dum 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 dum, and I thought that's really cool. I want to do something a little bit more organic like that instead of putting a percussion instrument or a drum or anything. Every time I listened to the song before it was recorded, like when I just had a demo, I would be doing that.
There you go.
So there it was.
Did you watch the Peter Jackson doco of making?
Several times.
All 8 hours each time, I hope.
Oh, man. I love it. I've rewatched it with certain friends. I keep telling people, you have to watch this.
Yep.
If you are a Beatles fan, this is the biggest look into what was really happening that we've ever had.
Yep.
We've never had that personal a look. And I think a lot of Beatles fans over the decades, we built up this story about their breakup.
Yep.
And I think a lot of, there's tropes that play even into things like Spinal Tap. There's all these things that kind of came from the idea of bands breaking up, kind of starting with the Beatles, really.
Yep.
That we build up in our heads, the girlfriend, or it's their fault, and they split up the band, or everybody's fighting and at each other's throats. And it was incredible to me to watch that and see that they were not at each other's throats.
Yep.
They were incredibly sweet to each other.
Yep.
And that just warmed my heart.
Yeah. The friendship between John and Paul, they're such different people, and you listen to them and you think, how do they get along? But man, they're tight.
They're so tight. It was incredible.
And Ringo's drumming is the other revelation, I think. How did he?
I will argue any day with anyone who hates on Ringo's drumming.
Good on you.
I've got tons of songs from early albums even where I'm like, you try to play this.
Yep.
These are salsa beats and stuff that are happening inside these pop songs.
Yep. There you go. Now, on your album, you have right in the middle of it, there's a thing called Sayonara, which is over 7 minutes long. So it feels like
Yeah.
it's kind of, and it's very dramatic as it builds up at the end. Is it kind of the centerpiece of the record in your mind?
Mainly, I was thinking about how the album would play on vinyl,
Right.
and have side A and side B. And I knew that I wanted side A to end with that song.
Yep.
And so that in that sense, it kind of was. I mean, I knew which songs I wanted to end both sides. You know, I knew where I wanted the middle of the record to be and where the end. And that one was just such a emotive song about relationship and heartbreak that I wanted it to be the end of that first side.
Okay. Now, speaking of vinyl, didn't you do some gig a couple of weeks ago at making of the vinyl in the factory or something? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was incredible. So I did. I had all my vinyl pressed at a local plant here called Vinyl Lab.
Okay.
And their whole team over there just worked with me through every step of the process and really helped me with all of my design, the things I wanted. I ended up going with a splatter design for the vinyl.
Oh, cool.
So the vinyl's actually on white vinyl with red and black splatter going through it. And when we were in talks about printing those, they offered me the opportunity to do the release show for the vinyl. They have a venue attached to the factory, and the venue's been doing really well here in Nashville, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful space. And so they did that, and then it also ended up that at the same time there was the Making Vinyl Conference, which was here in town, and they invited the whole conference over. So we had a packed house of just a ton of people. It was such an amazing energy. And right next to the stage, you had a window where you could look through and watch your copy, essentially, of the record being pressed. Whew. And order it right there.
That's pretty cool.
It was
amazing. So did you have to get a test pressing and approve it and all that stuff when it was being mastered?
Yeah, absolutely. Still got the test pressings just right over here.
Very good. So now I'm curious, because you're talking to me and I'm in New Zealand and the record is coming out, so you're promoting it here. And I'm thinking about, are the records going to be here? Or do you? So over and above that, do you consider this kind of a New Zealand project, or is it worldwide or more Nashville based? How are you looking at yourself these days as a solo artist?
As a solo artist, I definitely look at myself as more worldwide. I'm playing a few shows in Europe next month, and I'm looking to come back to New Zealand this summer.
Yep.
And do a whole tour of shows there. And my allegiance to New Zealand has never failed me, and I can't wait to come back. And very excited to be having songs on the radio there again. It's been a long time for me, and just the reaction from all the old Atlas fans and new fans over there has been incredible.
Right.
And I can't wait.
Right. Well, the album's out tomorrow? Well, here tomorrow, because tomorrow's Friday here, day after tomorrow. And what are you going to do on the day?
Well, I actually hit the road tomorrow morning for a tour here in the States. So I will be on the road performing. Yeah.
Solo or with a band, or how's that working?
This will be a solo tour.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
It will be a solo.
All right. And are you thinking of along the lines of, I know they have Americana Fest in Nashville. Is that something that piques your interest?
Absolutely. I will be on Americana Fest.
Oh, will you? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Nice. And I'm not sure if you're aware there are other Kiwis living in Nashville that are.
Oh, without a doubt. One of my good friends, Kaylee Bell.
Oh my God. Kaylee's been up here.
She's killing it.
She's a superstar.
Yeah, no doubt. And she deserves every bit of it. She's incredible.
Excellent. Well, that's all good to hear. So I love to hear that all that's coming together for everybody. So that's fantastic.
Ah, it's fantastic. No, there's a really good lot of Kiwi representation here in Nashville.
Yep. I can name a bunch more, but I won't. And you're born on the 4th of July, aren't you?
That's right.
So you got that
I'm
coming.
a fire.
All right. Well, it's all happening. Very good. Well, we look forward to seeing you when you return to New Zealand. You're going to look up your old bandmates. Do you keep in touch with them or no? Or
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be staying with a couple of them while I'm there, and we just might even be making some music.
Ooh, okay. We love a good reunion. All right.
It's right.
Thank you very much.
Little tease for you.